up in this bitch.
Oh, you want to get crunk?
Let's get crunk.
Let's get crunk. I got a whole refrigerator full of
crunk?
Crunkination downstairs. I'll be the master of crunkimonies up in here. Welcome everybody to crunkselect.com. I'm Jeff.
Amanda, I think.
What hath you wrought? Yeah, and Amanda, can I just be the first person to say
yes?
I feel reborn today. I feel alive.
Did you get 8 hours of sleep?
No. Fuck no. I got like 5 hours of sleep. I'm drinking coffee just to keep from being asleep right now.
Yeah.
No. Do you hear? That?
Yeah.
I made a decision a few months back to try to grow my hair back out again.
How'd that work out?
I look like a crazy person. I was looking like a crazy person for a few months now, and today I was like, I cannot anymore. It used to be that when I got fed up with life, I would shave my beard off, and I wouldn't tell anybody, but inevitably it would be like, oh shit, we have to have an emergency live show where I'm on camera.
Yeah, every single time.
Yep. But in this one, I was growing my hair, and I wasn't telling anybody about it. And then today, I was just like, no, never.
You know what's funny is I noticed your hair was growing, but I just assumed you're being really lazy.
Really?
Like you
that
were
was
just
more lazy.
Like you were just like, fuck it.
No,
I have to find a razor.
I thought I would grow it out a little bit and check and see like how it looked. But like what I forgot was that like most people don't remember that like starting from zero is a long process, especially if you're losing your hair like I am. So, you know, so basically I had like a lot of hair in the back that was respectable and then just like a lot of wispy bullshit in the front that made me look like an insane person. So, nope, I am freshly shorn. I am ready for this podcast. Let's do this. And we've got a lot of actually really interesting gaming news. Not a lot of Flash today, but a lot of stuff that I feel like is going to be really interesting to talk about. But before we do that, always got to talk about something so I can get those hot thumbnails. Get them hot thumbnails up in there. By the way, I'm still taking anybody. I actually feel you guys can comment. Let me know. Last week, I asked people to tell me why Blade Runner 2049 was brilliant.
Oh, yeah.
And I realized that that's not really fair because I've cultivated such a
no spoilers
that like you would probably have to get deep into the things. So I'm trying to wonder, like, should I start like a forum post somewhere or like maybe like a Facebook post that has like warning, this is spoilers about Blade Runner 2049.
Yeah.
And then let people comment there because I haven't gotten a lot yet. I've gotten some like, I don't mind the length and it's very pretty, but I need like the word brilliant, maybe I don't rattle off just any, I'm like, this cheesy gordita crunch is tasty. I don't say it's brilliant.
I've seen drunk Jeff say that a tasty gordita crunch.
Well, drunk Jeff, you can't trust that guy.
Like, this is brilliant. And then we'll be like, hey, do you want a Doritos Locos taco? And you're like, oh,
that's brilliant.
So brilliant.
I do.
Are you crying, Jeff? You're like, oh,
you should get a Nobel Prize for that suggestion. Woo! Anyway, well, before we jump into the news, we got two hot movie trailers to talk about. One Amanda has seen and one Amanda has not seen.
Yay!
The first one is the one that Amanda has not seen, and that is Black Panther, which I just watched moments before we got started.
I had my eyes closed and my fingers in my ear. I was like, la, 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 la.
I was outside. I don't know why I wasn't in the room with you, so... Just really wanted to make sure.
No, that had nothing to do with the trailer. Okay. That's just what I was doing earlier.
That's just what I do when I'm not in the room.
Whenever I'm by myself, I'm just like, too much time to think to myself.
I don't know. It looks really good. It looks kind of flashy. It's I do kind of like the idea of moving to a superhero who isn't just in the tech Tony Stark world. Like I watched Spider-Man Homecoming. I didn't really even talk about it all that much because I mean, it was okay, but like I'm starting to get fatigued. Like I'm just straight up, and it's not even just superhero movies. I'm starting to get fatigued with sequels, remakes, and like just
AAA titles.
yeah.
Mainstream, big blockbuster movie by committee. Everything kind of has the same generic look and taste.
Yep. Star Trek Discovery is another one. Like Stranger Things season 2 is coming out. I thought Stranger Things season 1 was great, but it was also such a nostalgia wank homage to like the 80s that I'm like, I lived in the 80s, bro, and like we didn't have HD TVs or iPads. It was like fucking tape decks and pencils and like kind of sucked a little bit. Like, no, I mean, it wasn't like a wasteland. It wasn't like Mad Max. The Fury Road wasn't happening, but still, like, you had to go see a movie in the theater because VHS costs $7,000 and nobody could afford it.
Yeah.
Like that scene in Back to the Future where he's talking about the guy brings the TV in and he's like,
he says,
we have two.
No one has two.
No one has two TVs, or you must be rich. Yeah. So anyway, I'm getting a little fatigued. So I kind of like the idea of taking this one to. I feel like they have the ability with this one to do like a Guardians of the Galaxy or a Thor, where it's like in another place with a different type of hierarchy.
Yeah.
Instead of just like, oh, he's Spider-Man. Like it's Spider-Man.
Well, it's weird to be like, you watch Captain America, the first Avenger, and it's like New York. You watch Spider-Man, and it's like modern New York. You watch
Avengers.
Iron Man, and it's New York. I think he's in New York or California.
He's in California in the second one.
Well, I guess just like United States.
Yeah.
Everyone's in the United States. It's like, which
that's not entirely. I mean, like Civil War takes place in. You've got like
made up land,
Sokovia,
mostly just the origin characters,
right.
or like the focal point character stories, especially those that like for Phase 1 stuff.
Yeah.
So to have Black Panther be this character, he's a much more established character too.
Yeah.
Just because it's not like superpowers or
right.
I was just using my brains and make this suit. Well, I mean, unless it is, I don't know. I didn't watch the trailer,
and
I just know based on the comics.
All of the Netflix series, New York.
Yes.
Right.
Well, it had to be because you're going to interconnect all those characters,
right.
So it's kind of hard to be like.
So yeah, I don't know. I guess I'm looking forward to seeing something a little bit. I mean, Thor Ragnarok is kind of piquing my interest, but
I think not. I saw the trailer for that.
Really?
That was pre. I'm not going to watch trailers, and I wish I didn't. But the posters and some of the music choices imply 80s aesthetic. The movie itself doesn't have that, and it just bothers me that it's so very like, well, we tested it, and they seem to really enjoy 80s.
Well, it was like 70s, right? Because of the Led Zeppelin in the first trailer.
You're right,
that came
but
out.
it's just that like that
like throwback.
Yeah, that it's that like throwback idea.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think it's going to be like that in the movie. So then what they're doing is just selling you on something that they think you'll buy.
Oh, good. Well, maybe that's
which is that's what they're supposed to do, but it's just more annoying than anything.
But that might be a little bit better than Suicide Squad, where they had the one trailer with a song in it that everybody liked, and then it was just like, put more songs in that movie, put more fucking songs in it, put more songs. They didn't even let one song end in that intro before they just went into the next like pop song where it was like, goddamn. Anyway, so after that, I don't know. Eventually I'm going to go see it. See everything.
I mean, I'm going to watch it. John requires it of me, so.
Oh, really?
It's we're nerds.
Okay.
We're in a house of nerds.
Bunch of nerds over here.
Yeah.
And then the other one that we saw was New Mutants, which actually looks a lot better because apparently this is a horror movie.
Yeah, it's like a straight up horror movie.
Like in an asylum.
It's funny. I was watching Carrie with John, and while we were watching it, I was like, has anybody ever done an X-Men story where it just turns out that Carrie, it's like, you could do Carrie, and then at the very end be like, oh, it turned out she was a mutant, and now she's going to get like picked up to go to the...
Oh, Professor X.
Yeah,
Patrick Stewart comes in.
You literally don't have to change anything. She has powers. She uses the powers, and then she has an abusive parent that
we have to hide you from the government. You're now called Jean Grey,
right? So,
it's a made-up name that sounds stupid.
I asked John, and he was like, "Oh, they've done that before."
Mm-hmm.
I think it was in New Mutants that they did that. It was like a smaller run of the series, though, or like just one like character arc. And then it just seems like, and then all of a sudden the trailer came out for this right afterwards.
I like when I dig what I'm seeing. It seems like I'm all in favor of taking, because I think that one of the things that's starting to fatigue me is that the superhero movies in general, and let me just be very clear here. I got no problem with action movies, but every one of them is just this big bombastic action movie.
Mm-hmm.
Like I have said for years that I think that one of the reasons that Deadpool worked so well is because Deadpool's a comedy.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an action comedy, but it's still a comedy.
Yeah.
And it's funny as fuck, and that's great. Like when I saw that, I have been petitioning for years. I will continue to petition for an Emma Frost, Negasonic Teenage Warhead road trip comedy movie where they're mutants, but they're going, and like that's perfect because Negasonic Teenage Warhead, and then you've got prissy Emma Frost, the ice, the fucking White Queen, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe like
half naked the entire time, and the teenager's like,
yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't know. Like, I would just like to see some of this stuff as a more use this as a jumping off point. But like, if you can make Deadpool an action comedy, that means you could make a horror movie with New Mutants.
Yeah.
You could make I don't know, a Christmas movie with the Suicide Squad. I don't know.
Why was that where your head went?
I don't know. I was just
What's
trying to
wrong with you, Jeff?
paste together genres.
I think I
found footage documentary with X-Force. I don't know.
Yeah.
What about like a heist movie with the Multiple Man? That'd be great. Like
actually,
Ocean's 11.
You could totally do that, actually.
There's Maisie Williams.
Yeah, I was going to say,
Yeah,
she's
in there.
totally in it.
I also like the fact that I couldn't recognize any of them from the trailer, but then I went and looked up who all these people are, and I did read
You didn't recognize
just a little bit of New Mutants. Well, this guy, the dude from Stranger Things, should be blonde. The character that he's playing.
Oh, you didn't recognize the comic characters.
I couldn't
like
tell.
You didn't recognize the actors.
No, I recognize the actors, but I couldn't tell who was who.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I always love that fucking rubber wall gag.
Oh yeah,
it's my favorite.
And this is Colossus's cousin,
sister.
Sister. There you go. Anyway,
and I didn't even realize it until you brought it up. But her hair and how she looks and dresses makes the most sense.
It does. Totally looks like magic.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. That looks cool.
Yeah. I have a lot of like dedicated comic book fan friends who are mad about this.
Why?
Because that's not
a weird way. Why? Why are they so mad? Why? Somebody accused me of having Parkinson's disease after the VR video that we made where the first person was shaking all around. And I think that my headset wasn't calibrated properly because it hasn't been that bad in the past.
Now we're all going to find out that you got the shakes.
It's just the coffee, man. It's just the fucking coffee.
No, I don't know why they got so mad. I think it's just that they wanted it to be more true to the comic, and this is definitely... I honestly think, though, you have to really let people be creative with it.
Was it because Warlock isn't in there?
I don't know.
Do you know Warlock?
I probably do, but I don't know. I wouldn't have even known Magic until I saw her face.
I don't know.
Now I'm a believer. Ouch.
He looks like this.
Oh yeah,
he looks like a big crazy thing
for sure.
Yeah, hung out with that one dude, Doug Ramsey. Is that his name? This kid who Cypher was his name. Who like could like talk to computers and stuff.
Yeah,
he's always. I always think that it's funny because Warlock in the comics, the character is drawn like just a pile of garbage, and then like if they have to try to like animate him, he looks stupid because
he.
You would have to spend $1 billion animating.
I mean,
every
in fairness,
frame.
that was '90s animation.
Well, still, but I mean, like he just looks. It looks like an insane thing.
Yeah, he looks like some scraps from. That looks amazing. He looks like Earthworm Jim there.
Yeah.
Like scraps from a Matrix movie. Like
it's funny. Why am I getting? Because I typed in Warlock and I just keep getting Adam Warlock. Anywho, yeah, stuff to go see. I got all the rest of the movies on the list. What was the one I was talking about? I was legitimately excited for, but I can't remember what it is anymore. So, fuck it.
It's gone now.
Yep, it's gone
I ain't
now.
excited for shit.
Let's talk. Yeah, I'm not excited for anything anymore. Let's talk about some video games, shall we?
Okay.
Okay, so this week is going to be a big old. We got a
snooze fest. Everyone, get your pillows.
We got a big chunk of kind of bummers to start out with here.
Every time I'm on, we have a segment of bummers.
Every week there's a segment of bummers. That's the way the world works. But this week is some kind of like high profile bummers, but they're interesting
Segment
to
of
talk
Bummers
about.
is the name of my autobiography, by the way.
Segment of bummers. The first is that this week EA has shut down Visceral Games. For anybody who doesn't remember what that name is, Visceral Games made Dead Space, Dead Space 2, Dead Space 3, and then EA made them make the single-player campaign for Battlefield Hardline, which was like, fucking why? Why are you... Remember Battlefield Hardline where they tried to make it into cops and robbers, and then it just ended up being kind of stupid, and it was like, meh. Anyway, they were working on a... so EA, when they got the contract with the new Star Wars stuff after Disney bought Star Wars, they announced that they were making Star Wars Battlefront. Battlefront came out. We got Battlefront 2 on the horizon. And then they were also making a single-player game. Visceral, this company, was making a single-player game. And that game was shown just ever so briefly, one little snippet of it. Nobody really knew that much about it. But it was being worked on by Amy Hennig, who was one of the writers on Uncharted over at Naughty Dog, who they brought over to work on it. Everybody was very excited because people wanted to play a single-player Star Wars game. Like, with all due respect to Battlefront and the people who like to play online, some of us just want to fucking play, like, you know, a little hero game where we get to be a hero and we don't get fucking
shot up every 2 seconds.
Yeah, sniped by some 14-year-old and just like, like,
you scruffy looking nerf herder, and it hurts your feelings. It hurts your feelings.
Yeah, it does hurt my feelings. But you know, hey, my feelings are less important these days than they used to be, or less hurt by multiplayer 14-year-olds than they used to be. But I was still very much looking forward to this. Well, they scrapped it. But it's not just that they scrapped it. That would be way further down the news list. They
dragged it into the street and burned it.
Well, here's a couple things. First off, I think it's shitty that Visceral has gotten shut down because Dead Space 3 was kind of meh, like, received, and part of that, I believe, was because they added, let's all say the word together now, microtransactions into the game, where you could literally buy crafting materials to make your guns more powerful in the game with real-world money if you wanted to. A move seen as bleh. Then they made Visceral crank out a single-player campaign for a game that everybody should have known from the start was not going to be a thing.
Yeah.
You know. So then they started working on this. But, so there's that, and I hate to see a studio like Visceral that seems to have a fair amount of talent get shut down for stupidity.
Yeah.
But there's a quote here from EA's Executive Vice President Patrick Soderlund, who says, in its current form, it was shaping up this is about the Star Wars game. In its current form, it was shaping up to be a story-based linear adventure game. Throughout the development process, we have been testing the game concept with players, listening to the feedback about what and how they want to play, and closely tracking fundamental shifts in the marketplace. It has become clear that to deliver an experience that players will want to come back to and enjoy for a long time to come, we need to pivot the design. So it sounds like they're taking something that was a single-player game and spinning it into something else, which is kind of the thing. Like, this keeps coming up in the video game industry, and I fucking hate it. Like, you remember there were games in the PlayStation 3, Xbox 360 era where you had these games that had multiplayer that just didn't fucking need multiplayer. BioShock 2 had multiplayer. Nobody's playing that shit.
Well, a lot of this comes off a little bit like our studies have shown, like we've asked Jim and Jill America what games they want to play, and they said they need more multiplayer games. So we're inserting more of that, even if it doesn't fit the game. Like,
I honestly feel like it's a sort of thing where they're measuring. They're like, well, you know, if we sell them something with multiplayer, then we can put microtransactions or loot boxes or whatever into it. Like, I feel like we're at the tipping point now between you know, Shadow of War and Battlefront, and we got Assassin's Creed Origins is going to have loot boxes in it, and all this stuff like Forza, NBA 2K18, like all right around the. I think WWE 2K18 has some kind of loot box system in it.
They have a loot box system, but because of what happened with NBA, you can't purchase with money.
Oh.
And there's you should get John into that conversation.
We're going to talk about it tomorrow.
Yeah.
But I don't know. The idea that some corporate tool is just like, well, our market research shows that people don't just like to play a single player game. Yeah. It's like, that's they've been touting that shit for a long time, and it's horse shit.
Yeah.
If it's a good enough single player game, everybody. Grand Theft Auto 5 didn't have multiplayer until like 3 months, 4 months, 6 months after it launched. Like, it was supposed to launch with multiplayer and just launched with the single player. fucking broke every sales record that there was.
Yeah.
If you make a solid motherfucking single player game, people will buy it.
But that's an exception to the rule, Jeff.
I don't know. I think that if you build it, they will come, and I don't like the idea that this is getting shut down. But then again, the video game industry is very closed about details about what's going on because nobody internally wants to talk, because if they do, then you get a reputation and nobody will hire you and trust you or whatever. So they are going to be, though, as Visceral shutters, they're going to be transferring the work that's already been done on this game to EA Vancouver, who have already been helping with it. There is no question about how they plan to move forward yet. So we'll have to see.
Yeah.
But bummer.
Bummer.
Let's move on from bummer
to another bummer.
To go fuck yourself.
Uh-oh.
This is maybe this whole segment should be called "Go Fuck Yourself."
Yeah.
So, all right, we're okay. Before we start, I would like to say, okay, let's do it in this order: headline, disclaimer, and then the story, because I don't want to go through this and then have somebody type in the comment because there's been a response. Activision had a patent that was granted to them for systems to encourage people to spend money on microtransactions in video games.
Uh-huh.
Now, Activision has responded saying that this was an exploratory exploratory patent filed in 2015 by an R&D team working independently from our game studios, and it has not been implemented in any game.
Mm-hmm.
But, whoo boy, listen to this, ladies and gentlemen. For example, in one implementation, the system may include a microtransaction engine that arranges matches to influence game-related purchases. For instance, the microtransaction engine may match a more expert/marquee player with a junior player to encourage the junior player to make game-related purchases of items possessed/used by the marquee player. A junior player may wish to emulate the marquee player by obtaining weapons or other items used by the marquee player. The microtransaction engine may match the junior player with a player that is a highly skilled sniper in the game. In this manner, the junior player may be encouraged to make game-related purchases such as a rifle or other item used by that marquee player. And then further on, it says, for example, if the player purchased a particular weapon, the microtransaction engine may match the player in a gameplay session in which the particular weapon is highly effective, giving the player an impression that the particular weapon was a good purchase. This may encourage the player to make future purchases to achieve similar gameplay results. Now, all the discussion that we want to have about loot boxes and microtransactions and DLC and pre-order bonuses and all that fucking bullshit, this is kind of where I start to go, you could fuck off, right? Like, if the game is actively weighting the game towards people that spent money versus people who didn't spend any money.
Yeah.
And that may already be happening to a certain degree. I mean, obviously the people that spend money in a lot of multiplayer games do get an advantage because they do have better stuff. But the idea of having an algorithm that literally puts me with somebody who spent money so that I'll look at the gun they have and go, ooh, that's cool. How do I get that? And the way that I get that is by paying real world money on the store, or that if you buy a thing that it puts you in a match weighted so that your purchases seem like they are better, so that you don't feel like you got ripped off because you bought a gun and then you started playing. And
well, then if you're really a hardcore player, then you should be good without all those purchases. Because then you know that you're only winning because you made a purchase. I really wonder if it's like, ooh, that's really cool, I want it, or if it's, I can't fucking win a match unless I pay money.
Possibly.
In which case, and then if you do pay money, then you're just going to get easier matches because they're going to pit you against people so that you could be like, look at your fancy gun that you got. This guy bought it. Why didn't you buy it? It's going to make people not want to pay. Like, I honestly think that's a great way to drive away players. Like, especially on like a multiplayer game, you're going to dwindle the numbers of people that are playing that game because
I think it depends. I think it really depends on how blatant it is. Like, if it's a subtle touch, then it could, because I don't know what I understand what you're saying, or what this says to me is that we are entering. Okay. I think the best way to put this,
theoretically entering, because they said they haven't implemented it.
Well, that's true. Yes. If this is implemented in the future, well, the problem here is that they say that, but like, they're not required to disclose if this tech. They said it's not. They specifically said it is not in Destiny 2, but I'll be real honest. Like, I know I talk a lot about Jim Sterling, but Jim Sterling this week had a thing where he talked about, he kind of lined up instances of the video game industry lying, where the people are like, well, isn't there a new Uncharted? We've gotten the leaks that there's a new Uncharted, and there's not a new Uncharted, there's not a new Uncharted. And 3 days later at E3, hey, everybody, look at this trailer for the new Uncharted game, right?
Yeah.
Where companies a lot of times will just fucking straight up lie to people about a thing. But this is really dismaying to me because it basically says that they're willing to fuck anybody who buys their game unless they're also willing to continue to spend on it. Weights it in favor of people who are spending additional money in the game. So it basically says, that like, well, we don't care about people who just buy the game and want to play. We care about people who buy the game and then buy more guns online on top of that.
Yeah.
And that they're going to get preferential treatment. So just to tie everything together in a neat little bow, let's move back to the previous one about how people don't want single-player games. Well, guess what, Activision? I want single-player games because I don't got to worry about being match-made into some match where some motherfucker who spent $20 on a gun is able to whoop my ass all the live long day.
Yeah.
Besides, doesn't Activision make Call of Duty? I already get my ass whooped in Call of Duty. I don't need anybody buying. But I guess they also have Destiny 2. And because it's Blizzard as well, Overwatch could technically get in there.
They could, but none of their loot box is all skins and sprays. It's not any weapons or anything.
But it's just, it's the sort of thing where it may not be implemented, but boy, howdy, one of the kind of scummier companies out there doing this sort of thing. It really kind of rubs you the wrong way, where it's just kind of like, oh man. I
imagine that's Blizzard's bread and butter is those microtransactions, though.
I don't think Blizzard would do it. Well, like you just said, it wouldn't matter if Blizzard did do it because they could just match me with people that have that Zenyatta Halloween skin.
Like, why are you taunting me?
Yeah, it would be more if it was in like the Call of Duty World War II or Destiny or something like that.
But a lot of those games, like even if they don't implement it, like in a way where it's you're losing because they spent money, but if you're going against somebody that spent money, they probably dedicated a lot more time than you because they put additional funds into that game. Does that make sense?
I think maybe, but then you also could have people whose if you're talking about like Call of Duty, people whose pride would say, I'm not going to fucking pay to win this game. I'm too good at Call of Duty to pay to win. And then, but I don't know. All right, next up. This is kind of a weirdly esoteric story.
I'm all about it.
CD Projekt RED is the company that made The Witcher 3 and all the DLCs. They're also making a game called Cyberpunk 2077.
Is that anything like Cleopatra 2525?
No.
Damn it.
Well, I don't know. They had one CGI trailer like 3 years ago, and I haven't heard anything since. But there's a company, and I'm going off of mostly a combination of a NeoGAF article and a story that was attached to this, where there's a website called Glassdoor where you can review as an employee, as a verified employee, you can write a review of the company that you work for, so that other people can see whether it's like a good place to work or a bad place.
That sounds dangerous.
Yes. Well, this has been around for a while, I believe. And
this is like Rate My Professor, where you want to make sure you're out of the class before you rate your professor.
Yes. But they were suffering. It's gone back up a little bit, and who knows if that's just internally they told all their employees, "Hey, man, fucking go give us 5 stars." Right?
Yeah.
But a little while back they had a rating of 3.1 stars. And the percentages, 46% would recommend a friend to work there, 15% approve of the CEO. And for a comparison, Ubisoft has a ranking of 3.8. 85% would recommend a friend to work there, and 98% approve of Yves Guillemot. So some of the common threads in the reviews were middle management is heavily criticized for not being in tune with gamers and not listening/trusting their employees. Talent is often lost due to pressure, long working hours, fake milestones, to increase pressure, bonus system that is biased towards middle management, broken and outdated tools, studios grown too large too fast, lack of planning vision, no investment in employees, constant renovations causing chaos, work tends to be lost or done in vain, employees aren't kept in the loop on the production schedule, culture of blame, erratic/absent CEO who, quote, doesn't even like games. Now, in response to this, CD Projekt Red put out a statement this week.
I play plenty of games. I play the Mario Brothers and even Witcher 3.
And Sonic the Hedgehog.
yeah, he's like reading it off his palm of his hand. Like, I play video games.
Yes. I also played video games too. The Adventure of Link. So this is kind of weird because then CD Projekt Red put out a thing that said, hey there, if you're following news related to CD Projekt Red, you might have recently stumbled on information regarding morale here at the company. We normally avoid commenting on company reviews on spaces like Glassdoor, but this time around, especially in light of the fact that we haven't communicated anything about Cyberpunk 2077 for a long time, and blah, 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 blah. They go on to basically say, like, they've doubled in size. Everything's fine. Don't worry about it. It's all good.
Meanwhile, there's people in the background like, help me.
Okay, thanks. But yeah, I haven't looked to see if there's like an acrostic in there that is like, get me the fuck out of here.
Call the police.
Yeah. But basically, I think that what they're saying is, hey, don't worry. Cyberpunk 2077 is still on track and nothing is wrong with it.
I'm sorry, did their Twitter also say they're hiring for a PR manager?
Yes.
That's what a crazy timing. They might need a PR manager.
I find this all, though, really strange because, The Witcher 3 is kind of universally adored, and it had 2 DLCs that everybody fucking loved, and you got Gwent is out there.
Just because a video game company has a good product doesn't necessarily mean that it's a good place to work. I know plenty of people that worked at Rockstar for Red Dead Redemption, and they had a horrible time.
Oh, okay. No, that's true. That's true. I do think that if they really wanted to assuage me, they would put out a fucking trailer for Cyberpunk 2077. Right, yeah. But then also, I remember why I wanted to keep this in here is, every so often we'll see stories about this, but let us never, ever forget. People who like video games and play video games and think about and read about and, appreciate video games. Let us all never forget that to this day, there's a lot of shitty shit that happens in the video game industry. Like, Konami would make people that posted poorly about Konami on social media go work in the gym.
Yeah.
Like, there are a lot of times, we just had Visceral, who did nothing but what their parent company told them to do, get dissolved. And, like, they're going to try to maintain those people. But there's plenty of things where big publishers will put together a game studio, make a game, and then immediately dissolve them as soon as it's launched, where then those people have to go out and try to find a new job. Hell, I got friends who've worked in the video game industry who did the sleeping under their desks at crunch time thing for not really any good reason outside of, because it's weird is that I worked for a company during the beginning phase, and everybody was real lackadaisical, just like, hey, we're having a Friday meeting, and blah, 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 blah. If things were a little bit tighter in the beginning and the middle, I feel like they wouldn't have to do this.
Crunch time at the end.
Yeah, 4 months of, 80-hour weeks for everybody in QA kind of thing.
Yeah.
But, in any case, it's worth remembering, and I don't know. I hope that things are good. This is one of those things where who do you believe in this?
The employees.
The employees?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
They didn't even I just if you go, hey, our bosses are idiots and don't know what they're saying or what they're doing. One, I've worked in enough jobs to know that that's true, and 2, when their response is, oh, that video game we're working on is totally coming out. That's not a good sign, to me. Also, that they were hiring a PR manager right at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just hilarious to me.
I don't know. Well, speaking of hilarious things, Humble Bundle got bought by IGN.
Huh?
Question mark.
Yeah.
Question mark.
7 other question marks. And then an upside down question mark for you Spanish speakers.
There you go. At the beginning, right? I really like it. You know, it starts you off. You don't have to you're not reading a sentence in a normal voice and then going like this. You're like, what? Anyway, that's my Spanish accent right there. So yeah, Humble Bundle. Humble Bundle, if for anybody, I mean, goddamn, how could you not know? But Humble Bundle started off as a service where you could basically buy bundles of stuff with proceeds going to charity and kind of name your price.
Like bundles of games, not just random shit.
Really? Shortly after games, also books, music, like other digital delivery stuff. You could buy comics.
Yeah, that's true.
Very shortly after, and then eventually they expanded into a store, and even they have a subscription service now. Which you remember when we watched the trailer for the Quap Guy's new game?
Yeah,
where you're in the barrel.
Yeah,
you're in the cauldron.
What does he have? Like a shovel or pickaxe, right?
Was it an axe or was it a pickaxe? Was it regular? No, it was like a sledgehammer, right?
Oh, it was a sledgehammer. You're right.
That was like, I didn't realize the nomenclature because I stopped humble bundling because I just kept buying them and then never playing or reading or looking at anything.
Yeah.
It was like, well, this is $10. I can afford that. And then it was like,
I'd be stupid not to get it.
Right.
And then you don't do anything with it.
And then after getting like 8 in a row and not ever playing or reading or looking at anything that came with them, I was like, I'm going to stop doing this now. I think I'm just going to stop. It's going to stop doing this.
Half of the games I have on Steam are because a bunch of my friends keep buying Humble Bundles that have games they already own.
Yeah.
They go, haven't you owned this? I'm like, no. Give me it.
So, bada bing bang boom.
IGN?
Well, no. That game that we were talking about actually came to their subscription service where it's like, kind of think of like a digital version of Loot Crate where you're subscribed and then you get a bunch of games basically for like $10 a month. And at the beginning of the month, they send you codes for a bunch of games.
Uh-huh.
I already own most of them, but it turns out that was an exclusive to that service last week. And that if you didn't get it last week, then it's coming like mid-November. And I was like, oh, boo, because I wanted to play that on Rage Select.
Yeah.
Like, looked like a horrible
Yeah, it looked like a great game to not enjoy.
Yeah. Anyway, back to the story. IGN has purchased Humble Bundle, which is strange because I think that when we think of IGN, we think of a review website.
Yeah, think of the fun I have in the comment section.
Of IGN?
Mm-hmm.
I've never been to the comment section of IGN. Is it worse than YouTube?
That's a same.
Same?
About same.
Okay.
It's like a Kotaku comment thread.
It kind of seems like a weird move. Considering like they had to put out, of course they put out all the lip service to like the Humble Bundle division is going to be completely separated from like their editorial division because people don't want it appeared to be that, Humble Bundles put the Cuphead on sale and the IGN is writing an article about
what
how
a coincidence.
Fucking Cuphead is the greatest game I've played in 40 years to try to keep that stuff from happening. Still though, I mean, it's just weird. It's very strange. Like, I don't know, like IMDb buying Miramax or something. I don't like, or Metacritic buying, take your pick, Visceral Games.
Nice.
It's hard.
I'd be happy if Sony bought Visceral Games.
Well, yeah.
I'd be happy if somebody bought Miramax.
Yeah. I don't know. It's a weird one. And I think that I think it'll probably be fine. It's just strange.
I think
it's strange
after
news.
the news of this dies down, people are going to completely forget the fact, unless IGN just starts plastering their logo all over everything.
They do like to plaster that logo,
right?
It's a pretty shitty logo.
It is a very bland logo.
It's some real white bread shit. It makes Rage Select look positively spicy by comparison. It's a D-pad. That's all it is. At least we got
an exciting D-pad, though.
We got fucking flames on our logo. What's up? What's up? Flames.
Boom, because we're extreme to the max.
Extreme. Radio. Speaking of extreme, let's talk about Nintendo. Extreme. Actually, there was an article that I had on the list, but I axed due to time.
Yay.
There was actually somebody saying that it was Nintendo being like, we want more grown-up games on our system. We want more like fucking violence and destruction.
Yeah.
I'm like, great.
Nintendo's like, no.
No. Nintendo was saying,
I
we
thought
want
you were
more
saying
developers.
That, like, fans were like demanding it.
No.
Okay.
Like, we want more developers. Like, I feel like they're like fucking it's been one. The Wii really did it to him.
Yeah.
Like pre-Wii, you got to remember that on the GameCube had Killer 7, Resident Evil 4 launched on the GameCube, and they remastered all of the old Resident Evils for the GameCube. GameCube had some fucking M for mature games, and I feel like Nintendo's reputation as being super for kids really started with the Wii, and then I feel like they tried to pull it back on the Wii U with Zombie U and the Fatal Frame games.
Yeah.
There's some Bayonetta 2, and that they're really just trying to dig themselves out of that hole of just
well, that was
babies.
a thing they did to themselves, and they need to pull themselves out of it.
Yep. Anyway, that's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is there's a new update for the Switch, and this is version 4.0 of the Switch software that has video capture for some games. You can finally transfer your user profiles and save data from one system to another. Fucking thank you.
Yay.
And you can pre-purchase some games on the eShop for the Switch. So if you got a Switch, turn it on, do the update, and I don't know, share some Zelda on Facebook. Is that what you share your ARMS victory? ARMS got an update too where you can look at replays and stuff. So I guess now you can
share those replays and be like, look at how cool I am with my arms.
Yep.
I don't know. We don't have a Switch yet. Soon. Soon.
Well, let's switch gears.
Oh, was that a Switch play?
Was
that a play on the
switch gears from the Nintendo Switch to Resident Evil Revelations on the Switch? Which is going to be coming. So first off, allow me to just say, for the umpteenth time, 1 million times, always and forever.
Mm-hmm.
Resident Evil Revelations 1, although I never actually got all the way to the end of it, is a criminally underrated game that I thought was really, really good. I feel more people should play it. Resident Evil Revelations 2, I didn't really play all that much of it, but I heard good stuff about it. It's kind of cool where, in the first chapter, you had, was it Claire? Claire Redfield? Is it Jill? Is it Claire?
Female.
You had two ladies. One was I think Barry Burton's daughter, and then the other one was Jill or Claire, as we've already established. I can't fucking remember.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them had a gun, and the other one had a flashlight, and you could play it co-op.
The other one had a wish and a prayer.
Well, no, but it was cool because the one with the flashlight could hold the flashlight on the zombie's face, and it would blind them, and then the one with the gun could do an execution move and save ammo.
Yeah.
So you play co-op with another person, and then you'd have to work together, but it wasn't like everybody had the same gear. You had to be fucking freeze him, freeze him.
The other person's like, I just have a flashlight, do something.
In episode 2, it was Barry Burton and an 8-year-old girl. So
that sounds frustrating.
But the 8-year-old girl could see
that
zombies.
Poor 8-year-old had to deal with Barry.
Yes, yes, and it was Fat Barry too, not Resident Evil
He's
Remastered.
Hang on,
Chunky Barry.
I had to pack myself lunch.
Yep.
Made a Jill sandwich. Yay!
It was solid work, Amanda. Solid work. Yep. Everybody
I got
clap.
us there, everyone.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so with the re-release of Resident Evil Revelations 2, I had a hard time today.
Yeah, that was
Resident Evil Revelations and Resident Evil Revelations 2 on the Nintendo Switch. They are adding a couple of tiny mini games.
Yay, baby games.
One is just a thing where it looks like you're clicking on zombies as Jill on a ship, and it's pixelated,
Yeah.
and it looks like
The music's
really
kind
stupid.
of adorable.
It's a little bit, yep. The other one is basically Ghouls and Ghosts with Barry instead of Arthur. Uh-oh. I think I just
clicked
closed
off
a different thing.
Oh, well.
Anyway, this looks incredibly cheap and thrown together in a heartbeat.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
There's weird white outlines around all of the old Ghouls and Ghosts textures.
This looks like if it were a fan-made thing, we would say it's cute.
Yes. But since Capcom made it, I expect
a little more.
A little more. And it's not just Barry. The different enemies have been replaced with different sprites. Mm-hmm. So that's pretty cool. I don't know. As if you needed a reason to get this. I'm a big fan of Revelations coming out November 28th. Depending on what all is coming out, we might end up taking a look at it here on the dojo.
Yeah, it just depends on the schedule.
What's your Resident Evil level, Amanda?
I was scarred for life with the first one, and
what scarred you in the first one?
Opening the door to leave the mansion and the dogs. That jump scare.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So when I was the youngest of all my cousins, Mexican, so I have 8 million cousins, and I was the youngest of them until a whole new crop of cousins started getting born.
Sure.
And that game came out, and they put it on full blast. And I was in a different room, and they said, "Hey, come play. We want to play this game with you." And I'm like, little kid going, "My cousins finally want to play with me."
Oh no!
Because they never did, and they were like, "Yeah, so go ahead and all you got to do to start the game is you open the door to leave this building." And I opened the door, full blast, dark room, horrified. It was the worst.
Damn, Amanda's cousins. Damn yous.
Yeah, and then after that, I was just I watched my brother play it, and then I watched him play all the other ones, but I never played Resident Evil. I tried once as an adult and was like, the controls are wrong. Everything feels wrong.
Oh, so. Yeah. The remake was pretty good, as you don't have to deal with the tank controls.
Yeah. But yeah, I couldn't do it. I was literally moonwalking into rooms and shit.
Yeah, that's a real problem. That's a real problem. Well, speaking of Resident Evil, we got a trailer this week for the last bit of Resident Evil 7 DLC, which is for what is this? The end of Zoe and Not a Hero, the Chris Redfield stuff. Which for anybody who's forgotten since playing Resident Evil 7, Zoe was a character that kind of just disappears, and you never really find out what happens with her.
Yeah,
it looks like they're going to be filling in what happens with her. There's also a character in this trailer that looks like he might be Jack's brother, the patriarch of the Baker clan.
Mm-hmm.
The one that shoves the food in your mouth with cuts off that one guy's hand. Anyway, and speaking of that guy, speaking of the son, I feel like his story was never really resolved, and that it appears that he's going to be the primary mover and shaker that is going up against Chris in Chris's DLC for Resident Evil 7. I have to say,
yes.
I mean, Resident Evil 7, goddamn Resident Evil 7, you're doing great.
I was going to say, is this a good goddamn or a bad goddamn?
Good goddamn.
Good goddamn. Goodness gracious.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, the engine that they're using looks really great. I've really enjoyed. Watching this just makes me want to go back and play the entire game over again. I really enjoyed RE7. I don't know. When you saw this trailer, what did you think?
I thought it looked cool, except for the part where I thought, what's his name wasn't wearing pants.
Oh, Lucas?
Lucas.
Is that his name?
Yeah, you get a jump attack a little bit, and it happens fast, and his pants are almost flesh tone.
Yeah.
And so I was like, why is he attacking you without pants on? Turned out he was wearing pants.
I don't know. I feel like
see that first shot. It looks like he's not wearing pants.
That's true. But I feel like what if he wasn't wearing pants, but instead of a wang dang doodle, he had just a big eyeball,
That'd be amazing.
In Resident Evil, you know how the tyrants always seem like they get a big eyeball on their shoulder or whatever. So
I'm for that. Yeah, just a giant eyeball penis. Yeah.
This just, I don't know, the way that they've done so well with this that it makes me just want to see.
And Zoe looks really pretty considering she's a monster.
Oh yeah, she's all plantified or something. She's got a little white goopy junky stew. Okay.
Anyways,
let's see here. I had a real hard time with this because we had a mini game in a new release, and then we got another trailer here that's kind of about the same thing. But I also had a Resident Evil trailer. So there's a trailer that just came out today for Shin Megami Tensei Strange Journey Redo. So Shin Megami Tensei Strange Journey was a Nintendo DS game that's in the Shin Megami Tensei universe. Hold on. Don't fast forward just yet. I know what you're thinking.
Skip.
So in the middle of this, the trailer turns into a fake trailer for a fake game that's like a Metroidvania with two of the the demons that you can summon in the Shin Megami Tensei
They're
series.
adorable.
Jack Frost, and then I don't know who the Jack-o'-lantern one is.
Looks like Sam Hain.
It's very possible. And it looks like a fake. It looks like a little Metroidvania game.
Mm-hmm.
And then I can't read Japanese, but as I understand it, halfway through the trailer or after that comes out,
And they're like, psych!
it says like, no, guess what? That wasn't the trailer at all. And then it goes back to more of the trailer for Shin Megami Tensei Strange Journey. And why am I bringing this up? It's because, oh shit, that game is actually a real thing, and you could download it from Atlas's website. So, yep. You can grab it right now. It's you can find a link to it. Everything is in Japanese, but apparently you can download it and run it in Windows. So cool.
Yay.
I'm always a favor of Metroidvania style games. Next up, we got a PS4, PS3 comparison trailer for Dragon's Crown Pro, the HD kind of ification of one of my favorite PS3 games. Dragon's Crown, actually, it's probably top 50, but which was widely criticized in the United States for having a lady character with a giant boobage that bounced up and down.
Yeah.
The funny thing,
I'm more distracted by her giant ass.
Oh, that's a different character.
Oh.
That's the Amazon. So it's funny because this trailer is like PS3, PS4 comparison, and I'm like, I can't tell the difference.
Yeah.
I do know that it's kind of cool that we're getting a chance to play this game again. I always thought it was a really kind of interesting and unique game that got a little overshadowed. I mean, I understand why people were upset about it. I mean, Amanda, here, I can show you.
Yeah. Show me the boobies, because all I see is ass.
Sorceress.
Which I'm not against, by the way. I actually kind of like the art for it, so...
That is the sorceress.
Is she okay?
That is a gif of her moving around.
Okay.
When she runs, she holds her hat, but her chest, they're slapping her.
I mean, her boobs are going to stay attached. Her hat will fly right off.
Yeah, people were a little bit not super happy about this particular character.
I'm for it.
And
I mean, shock and surprise. I'm totally for a big booby Japanese game.
What I always thought was kind of interesting about Dragon's Crown was that the United States, this is just fan art. Yeah. The United States gaming press was like, "Can you believe it?" And it was like, you realize this is a Japanese game made for, there's the running animation.
That's funny.
That this is a Japanese game.
That's adorable. I understand the tit thing, but that's actually an adorable animation.
Yeah. This is a bust. No, this is a statue. But yeah, I always thought that it was kind of interesting because I don't know. It's a much larger conversation that comes up when we're talking about localizations of Japanese games, where you say, Japan's got is a country with its own pop culture and the way that they think about sex. And are we to tisk them until they change their mind and conform to our ideas of? I mean,
do you want her to have a turtleneck on? That's just,
I don't know.
For fuck's sake. Can we just celebrate giant pair of tits without it being some weird fucking political discussion? God's sake.
No. I mean, it's 2017. God. Obviously not. Anyway, and cosplay. There you go.
Yep.
All right. Next up on the list, we have a trailer for a Nintendo Switch game that is called Moonlighter. Now, Amanda didn't actually get a chance to see this before we started.
You said I didn't deserve to see it.
I said, "Yep, this is too good." But this is a pretty adorable little game, and it's a little pixelated game. But what it appears to actually be, which is kind of crazy, is Racketeer, which is an indie game from Japan that was brought over here. That some people will know what that is.
Mm-hmm.
Basically about a young lady who runs an item shop by day and then goes into dungeons to get the items to sell in that item shop at night. Or not a day and night. With her, it's different. There's just turns that happen.
Yeah.
And she doesn't actually do the fighting. She hires heroes to do the fighting for her. And it's a hard game. And if you manage to get out of the dungeon, then you get to keep the items and you get to sell them so that you can hire better people and level them up and whatnot.
Yeah.
it appears that even though this kind of has its own like very unique, it's got some very slick pixel graphics, very nice looking.
Yeah.
That seems like it's pretty much the exact same thing, except that instead of like a behind the back 3D, it's like a kind of a top down Zelda. It also has some stuff that makes me think that it's going to be a bit on the hard side, that it's looking to be like one of those like, oh man, this game's so fucking hard, you'll lose your mind. But but it seems kind of charming. And I was a little bit weirded out though, because it's a trailer on YouTube, and then I went down to the comments and nobody mentioned Racketeer, and I'm just like, what? How could you not? But anyway, I don't know. What do you think? You've been watching the trailer while I've been describing it.
The dungeons, the levels remind me of Binding of Isaac.
Oh, I can see that.
That's just, I don't know if I looked weird while I was staring at it. I was like, what the fuck game is that? Because it looked real familiar.
Yeah, but that's just, I mean, it reminds you of Binding of Isaac because
it's basic.
Binding of Isaac is Zelda.
Yeah.
And I think it kind of reminds
some kind of sick, twisted Zelda. Yeah.
But it looks pretty cool nonetheless. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of want to see how much it costs. Because I'd be willing to shell out maybe $15-20 for
I was going to say, I didn't think it'd be more than 20.
And we got a couple more stories, and then we are going to take a break. First up,
are we out of the bummers? Did we get out of the bummer section a while ago?
Oh yeah, quite a ways back.
I wasn't paying attention. What are we doing now?
IGN buying Humble Bundle was the last bummer that we had, or was the last semi-bummer. That was the transition out of Bummersville.
Nice.
Dead by Daylight is basically teasing another DLC, and it looks like Freddy Krueger's going to be in that game.
Freddy's coming for you.
You know, I haven't been back to Dead by Daylight since Jason and I played it. I'm wondering, like, if they've made it a little bit slicker and easier to play and easier to kind of get into, because they've got fucking Leatherface and Michael Myers. They got everybody except for Jason.
Yeah, because Jason has his own game.
Yeah,
Jason would be special and get his own game. Now they got to just add a Hellraiser.
Yeah. Speaking of Jason, there were a bunch of updates. I think last week to the Friday the 13th game as well, where there was like. Another Jason, another house, another counselor, another few things. But
well, once Jason X is there, I'll play it. I'll buy it, but not until then.
Okay, so Hellraiser doesn't stalk people though, right?
He does. He follows people.
Oh yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
I guess he follows her all around that house in Hellraiser.
I just want it to be some kind of weird, fucked up sex game.
What about
it's
Candyman?
Like Leisure Suit Larry, only horrifyingly not Leisure Suit Larry.
What? It's Hellraiser, but you play as the wife, like getting people back to feed Frank, so he'll come back to life.
I just thought of how hilarious it is that like Leisure Suit Larry spends the entire game just trying to get that like better high, better sex, and then he finally finds this box that's supposed to give.
And then there's like the Cenobites come out, and then it's like 5 hours later, the Cenobites are like, "Fuck you, Larry! I'm never coming back here, you sick perverted bastard!" Jesus, Larry!
Wow!
Fuck's sake!
Too far, Larry!
God damn! I'm trying to think of who else you could put in.
But you could totally. I mean, depending on how you do like the dream logic with Freddy, you could totally put some Cenobites in here.
Okay, yeah, I guess so.
You know what I mean? Like just fucking chains and weird hanging people up by their.
There's already hanging people up in that game. You've got to like grab the.
So it lends itself really well to the freakish sex shit that happens in Hellraiser.
But do they put in the dude that's got like a CD player for a head? Was it a head or was it a chest? From Hellraiser 3, Hell on Earth.
Dude, I just watched the first and second one. I don't know if I've even seen the third one. Is that when you start getting the fat pinhead?
Fat pinhead?
Yeah, like they switch the actor at some point, and it's a guy that's not nearly as skinny as the original pinhead.
Oh, I don't know.
He's not really fat. He's just like average Joe pinhead, which is really not what you're going for, you know?
So in Hellraiser 3, there's the CD Cenobite. His name's CD. He had like a bunch of CDs in his face, and he would like throw them at people.
Nice.
That was in Hellraiser 3. And the guy with the camera in his head.
Yeah.
That's when they had the new Cenobites, right? After they
how do you have new ones? The like Pinhead is so. Oh, that's right. I guess that.
And Hellraiser 2, right? The doctor kills some of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But I mean, they're not exactly like living things. So what does it matter? with the killing,
Oh, I don't know.
right?
I don't know the rules to
10 Hellraiser Cenobites range from worst to best.
Don't tell people what I'm looking at on the internet. All right, last but not least, it's a man who can't keep her fucking shit together.
Never could.
So, all right, there is the Detective Pikachu movie that is coming to the United States at some point, and there is a story. This is our funsies story.
Yeah.
Legendary Films is fast tracking an adaptation of Detective Pikachu. Detective Pikachu, Pikachu character who has full dialogue, no electric powers, and is sentient more so than Pikachu and solves mysteries. I believe this is going to be a CGI movie about.
Sounds like a weird Howard the Duck kind of movie.
Yep, where like Detective Pikachu and a kid solve a mystery, and they've got some creative a YouTube channel called the Hashtag Show says it received word of some names behind the that they've been considering, and amongst those are Hugh Jackman, Zach Galifianakis, Mark Wahlberg, but my personal favorite, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, who I think would be perfect.
It's weird
to be Detective Pikachu.
Yeah, I just don't know how I feel about that.
I don't want it to be Zach Galifianakis. Don't make him voice the fat yellow mouse.
He played the Joker in the Lego Batman movie. He did a great job.
That's true. I just want Dwayne Johnson to be the voice of Pikachu.
Yeah.
I want Dwayne Johnson to be the voice of Pikachu.
The most electrifying.
I want Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson to be the voice of Pikachu, and I don't care who. So at first, did you ever see the trailer for this where the fans, when it first came out, they were like, oh, we know who should be the voice of this, and they just started dubbing fucking Frank from It's Always Sunny.
Danny DeVito?
Danny DeVito over Detective Pikachu.
Yeah, that would have been a good one.
And that is that's our story for this week. So,
nice.
Or those are our news stories. Stick around. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to answer your questions in just a moment. And we're back. And it's that time again, Amanda. It's time for reviews.
Yay!
Oh, not
we
question.
Do those?
Sometimes it depends on whether I managed to beat a game. And this week I did manage to beat a game, or got pretty much as close to beating a game as I feel.
If the last 5 minutes just went downhill, then.
Well, let's talk about Middle-earth Shadow of War.
Okay.
So the Shadow of War is the sequel to Shadow of Mordor, which is a game that is near and dear to my heart. Kind of came out of nowhere. They had promised, big stuff when they were first setting it up, and boy, howdy did they deliver. Now the second one has promised a lot of stuff as well, and it kind of delivered. There is this is a game that I feel like is full of good news and then bad news. So,
really?
there's for every one thing that I have nice to say about it, I feel like there's another criticism that I'm going to have about it. So let's jump in. So in Middle-earth Shadow of War, you play as Talion, the ranger from Shadow of Mordor. At the end of that game, he crafted him and Celebrimbor, the elf that's attached to him, which, if you don't know what I'm talking about because you never played the first game, maybe this is not exactly.
It's not the review for you.
It all makes sense, but they create a new ring. This is all, in the Lord of the Rings universe. They created a ring of power that is not connected to Sauron or his rings. And then they set forth to basically put together orc armies to overthrow Sauron and destroy his evil intentions towards Middle-earth. And the first game, at the end, you pretty much ended up beating up on Sauron's kind of top henchmen, but you never got anywhere close to Sauron. This one, you're actually doing that. It's got a pretty decent cast of characters. You got some folks, some Gondorian soldiers that are pretty decent, but kind of forgettable. There's one character that's the Blade of Galadriel. She's kind of cool. I would actually say that most of the story-based characters are a little meh outside of Shelob, strangely enough. And Matt and I talked about this.
Why, strangely enough?
Well, because she's a giant spider. And there's...
That sounds like they'd be the most interesting character.
Matt and I got into a conversation about this where before the game came out, they showed that Shelob is the giant spider, but that she can turn into a sexy lady.
I mean, who can't these days?
And that was a little bit just like, well, of course she can, because why wouldn't you just have a giant spider? But to be honest, they want you to empathize and like kind of have some connection to this character. And if it was a giant spider, you can bet your sweet bippy that I would have been like, middle fingers for everybody. Like
the whole time she's like, trying to give you advice, and you're just
If it would make for some interesting cutscenes if a giant spider was kind of slinking around Italian, just being like, you need to go find the ring. So for the most part, the writing is pretty decent. They do a lot of, they kind of cut some corners to shove this thing into the Lord of the Rings universe. But what you end up with is about 5 or 6. In the first game, you had 2 areas, right? You had Mordor, and then you had Gondor, a little cave that went between the two of them.
Mm-hmm.
In this one, you have, let's see, is it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I think, different areas. And each one of them is full of shit to pick up, subquests, towers, there's a whole series of missions that are nothing but Celebrimbor's memories, showing how he was a badass, that are just basically combat challenges, but they're dressed up in a nice way.
Mm-hmm.
But the real centerpiece of the entire game is the Nemesis system. And this is
the orc dating simulator.
The orc dating simulator is that orcs show up and they have a lot of different personalities.
Snack box.
Yep. I never got snack box, but what was funny is, okay, so here's the downside, let's do the upside for the last one, is that the world is very beautiful. The story hangs together well. The downside is that the characters are tolerably written, but not exactly. Nobody's going to be like, oh man, I don't even remember their names.
Yeah.
Like, remember the 2 people from Gondor? Like, weren't they awesome? And wasn't their story fantastic? And it was like, not really. It was kind of some open-ended, like, reason to do a bunch of quests, right?
Yeah.
So on the orc side, the upside is that you've got tons of orcs. You've got tons of different characters, ones that, they all have a different personality. There's some of them that are funny. There's some of them that are brutal. There's some that have little hype mans that go with them.
Yeah.
There was one that told jokes that I wanted desperately and I never managed to get. They all have their personalities.
Whispery guy that kept shushing you.
Yep. There's I found one guy that only would say one word. Like, he wouldn't say the same word, but every one of the times that he would do an exclamation, it was just one thing, and he was called like the Abrupt or something like that. Now, unfortunately, the downside of this is that I feel like because Shadow of War encourages you to play for an extended period of time, longer than the first game, and because your rate of attrition with orcs is higher, and especially gets higher the later you get into the game, I start to see the same names coming up. I start to see the same, this is one of those, like, I found a guy called like so-and-so the Sweet, and all he would do is say sweet. He'd be like, sweet, 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 sweet. That's all he would say.
Yeah.
Well, I ran into that same guy like 3 more times, right? He had a different name, and it might have been a different orc, but he was the Sweet, and that's what he did. That was his shtick.
Yeah, you hit that trait that he has.
So in the beginning of the game, it was wonderful. It made a really good impression. As the game went on, it became like less so. Combat in the game is just as good as it was in the first game, where you have a kind of like Assassin's Creed / Batman Arkham Asylum style, like everybody's gathering around you, you're doing like counter moves and stuff like that, and they give you a shitload of different things to work with. You can use, you've got a sword, you've got stealth, you've got a bow that you can use, and you can upgrade. There's an upgrade tree that has, you spend like the first 3 hours of the game just unlocking all the powers, and then every power has 3 modifiers on it, so you can really tune your loadout. And then in addition to that, you have a whole equipment system where you can equip, sword, dagger, bow, cloak, armor, and then a lot of those, when you get up into higher level gear, have a power that you can unlock that will modify it to make it even better. So it'll be like, first you do a little combat challenge, and then once you've done that, you can spend a little bit of cash. You can unlock the ability to do like get health back with whatever. The downside to this is that the game, it feels like the first like 2/3 of the game are really good, and then there becomes a point where the game starts throwing really difficult challenges at you. And this kind of loosey-goosey Arkham Asylum, Assassin's Creed style gameplay works really well when you're dealing with a certain number of orcs that are of a certain power level. once you've got 3 bosses that can all 1 or 2 shot you, all trying to hit you, it starts to become kind of chaotic to the point of frustration. Like in the beginning, as you're gaining these new powers, you feel like it's your basic video game power fantasy of becoming more and more powerful. You can take out these orcs. You're just like, oh, fuck it, I got this. Like, I'm gonna fucking jump over that guy. I'm gonna blow up that barrel. I'm gonna grab that Karagor. I'm gonna attack. Bada bing, bang, boom.
And I'm gonna do it with finesse.
Yep.
Yeah.
But when you're in the middle of a siege later on, and you've got a huge pack of orcs that are all around you, so you dominate orcs by cutting them down to a certain level, and then you hold down a button and you dominate them, and then they'll fight for your side. You can put them in your army. Well, there's a skill that you can unlock where you will just hit 2 buttons and you will auto dominate them. Like, because normally there's a little meter that has to fill up when you've got 8 guys all trying to hit you.
Yeah.
It's easier just to hit this thing because it puts you into an animation where you auto go up to them and you hit them. Unfortunately, at least not that I was able to see, since the game doesn't have lock on or anything like that, there were plenty of times where I would spend time fighting for my life trying to build that meter up so I could capture the guy that I needed, only when I hit that button press for the game to decide that I was talking about this other guy over here, and so I would waste it and then die. Also, when you die in the game, you get a second chance meter that comes up, so you have to do a quick time event to stay alive.
Yeah.
The most you can get of those are like 3, and for some of the things that happen later on in the game, 3 feels like I'm a very high level, and I think you get the 3rd one as a perk. You start out with the 2, and I think you get a 3rd one as a perk, but you never are able to get more than that, and it kind of sucks because you get more health, you can get more armor, you can get more stealth, you can get more arrows and focus and all these different things that you use in the game. I would have liked to have been able to get more of that. So there's a bit of a downside with that.
Yeah.
Back to the upside, castle sieges are pretty cool because you'll have in each area a giant castle that's full of different orcs, and you can spend a lot of time before you actually do these sieges betraying, like setting up, like turning orc lieutenants to betray their master, and then their master comes out to challenge you, and they fucking stab him in the back, and it's really cool. Like, it's cool to set that stuff up. The downside to this is that they showed a trailer of a castle siege where it was just like tons of excitement and adventure and all these crazy things are happening. Well, that only happens if you don't bother to take out all the orcs. If you take out all the orcs, you just walk in. And because there's nobody there outside of the boss at the end of the level, you just walk in, you have to stand in a place and capture a point. You capture that point, you capture this point, this point, this point, this point, walk in the door, kill the boss, you're done. So it's kind of weird because who wouldn't engage in this little system of backstabbing where you could spend 5 minutes to get rid of the flame archers that are going to be on the walls, or you could devote your army to potentially getting killed because there are flame archers on the walls once you take the 10 minutes that it takes to go get rid of the guy that controls the flame archers and have none of them. So conquering all of those things was very straightforward and easy. And by the end of the game, it's kind of cool the first few times, but I wish that they had ways to inject more chaos into it.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about microtransactions. Let's talk about loot boxes.
Our favorite topic.
Nobody ever talked about in depth what exactly happens, but you're playing the game, you get to a certain mission, you get to the end of that mission, and this kind of big shift in what's going on in the game happens. And at that point, you get into the 3rd act. Now, technically, at this point, you're going to be doing a lot of work in the 3rd act to get the cutscene that you and I just watched, which is the true end of the game. Now, unlike what has been described before, I honestly feel like the place that the game leaves you before you start on that 3rd act is not a good place to stop. Like, when you get there, you're not going to be like, oh, that's the end of the game, and then I can do this if I want to. You're going to be like, well, that's a weird place for this story to end. I need to see what the rest of this is. So here's how this breaks down. You can buy randomized loot boxes full of gear, orcs, experience boosts, and then training boosts that you can apply to orcs to make them more powerful. There's certain boxes that you can buy for free, or that you can buy with the in-game currency, which by that point in the game, by Act 3, I had a shitload of.
Yeah.
But the best ones cost money. And where this comes into play is the game, and this is maybe a light spoiler, but I feel like if you want to know how this works, it's not going to ruin. It's nothing about the plot of the game. It's just something that happens, and it's not like a cataclysmic, oh my God. It's not the craziest thing.
Yeah.
The 3rd act, the game turns the tables, and now you're defending your castles from invading armies. these invading armies will attack your castle, and now you can go and staff the place with the flaming arrows, the place with the Karagors, the place with this with your best orcs. And then you have to fend off like 6 or 7 different lieutenants from the other side that are trying to bust in. These are actually really cool fights in the beginning, in the very beginning, because what happens is the first stronghold that you put together when you're playing the game is like level 20. So all your orcs are level 20 because you can't dominate an orc that's higher level than you are.
Yeah.
So you have to, they're limited. There's some ways to get around that, but you're limited. So you've got a bunch of level 20 guys, and the attacking army is now like level 30. And you're like, ooh, okay, well, that's a little much, but I can probably make up the difference myself because I'm the player.
Yeah.
Then you get to the next one, and you got level 25 guys, and now they're like level 40. And you're like, ooh, boy.
Yeah.
So when people are talking about that you can skip like the grinding part of the third act, this is what they're talking about, is that you can buy legendary orcs for real money and staff your siege with them and then fend off the attack, and you don't have to do what happens if you lose. Now, if you lose a siege, then a bunch of your orcs will turn, and then you've got to go back and you've got to clear out all those positions in order to go back and do it. And that worked for me. So there are 10 of those levels before you get to the end of the game.
Mm-hmm.
The first 4 I managed to keep up with just by, I had some orcs that were of a higher level. I put them in the right place. I had upgrades. I was making it up with myself.
Right.
Once I hit the 5th one was the first time that I failed. And when you fail, it's a real time sink because you have to just basically go play kind of the same game that you just played over again, but it's harder now. Then when I got to the 6th level, I did all of that work and got to the boss, and the boss was about 5 or 6 levels higher than my character was and just whooped my ass.
Yeah.
Like, I had a really hard time. I fought as hard as I could. So then you get to a point where now, in order for me to beat that boss, because you can't bring your whole army with you, you can bring like one guy with you. But if the enemy boss is a high enough level, you just have to be their same level, which means that you're probably going to need to be investing in XP boosts and then going out and grinding for XP, which I think this is where you're going to see people saying you should find an orc, let them kill you, because then they level up and become better, and then you can kill them and either put them into your army to have a higher level orc or get better gear off them, because the higher level they are, the better gear they ride. So this right here is what people are talking about when they're talking about the loot boxes and being encouraged to use them to skip a fairly tedious third act of the game.
Yeah.
And I agree with this, because if there had been 4 or 5 of those sieges, that would have been fine, and I would have felt like that was great, because I was already like 14 hours into the game by the time that this happened.
Yeah.
I was about ready to be done. But 10... And the potential, like, setting one of these up and doing one of them takes about 20 minutes, 10 to 20 minutes, depending on how hard you fight.
Mm-hmm.
But if you die, then you're talking about another half hour to 40 minutes to clear off all the other orcs, to restaff your army, to get everything back together again, and then to take another shot at it. And then if you lose, you're going to have to just go grind in the game. So there's just like an immense time sink that, while I didn't have a problem sinking time into getting orcs and leveling up and getting new equipment in the beginning of the game, by this point, I was like, I've got all the powers unlocked. I've got good gear. I've got, like, I did all the side quests. I got all the orcs. I've been training them in the fighting pits.
You want your payoff?
Yeah, I wanted, because the way that I like an RPG to go is there's a curve where eventually, you know, it starts and it's really hard, but as you work at it, you get better and you get more powerful. And then towards the end, you start to really pay that off in a way where your character feels very empowered. And in this one, it feels like they stacked the deck against you, because that first siege that you get to where the orcs are level 50 and your guys are level 30, and it's like at the point in the story where I was capturing that fortress, there was no way for me to get level 50 orcs. Like, the only way for me to have done that would have been to go grind until I was level 50 and be, like, way OP for that. So they've stacked the deck against you in a way that encourages you to grind, and I feel like that's a bummer, especially because all you get for that amount of time, which is like another 8 to 10 hours, depending. I mean, you know,
yeah.
Let's say you just run through it. You're better than I am at the game, you know, whatever. Listener, you're better than me, okay? I admit it.
We didn't want to assume.
Everybody knows. Everybody knows that you're better than I am, all right? So that's cool. But what you end up with for that is what we saw, which is a 3-minute cutscene, which connects this story back into the Lord of the Rings franchise proper, which works. There is there are a couple of loose threads, which I feel like are going to be answered in the DLC, which is kind of scumbaggy to me because it's like big threads. Like the main character, Talion, his story gets pretty wrapped up, but there are some other main-ass event characters that happen in that game where it's like, oh, well, that's what this DLC is going to be, wrapping up what happened to those characters
Spider
after.
Lady's character?
I don't think Sheila, no, but some of the other ones. So anyway, in addition to that, there's also Slam the Play PS4 Pro looks great, loads great, not really long load times, plays very well, very smooth, good music. I love the orcs, for as long as they happen. There's a lot of good stuff to like about this game. It's just there's a lot of stuff in there that just rubs you the wrong way. Like in Shadow of Mordor, by the time you went from the first area to the second area, the second area of the game was where you ended up getting the dominate power. So the first half of the game, you didn't even have that.
Yeah.
Then suddenly in the second half of the game, you can set up ambushes and you can make guys your own, lieutenants and such. So I think that it's like a medium tier game, and it's unfortunate because I feel like that last act was probably studio interference to give you a reason that you would need to buy.
Yeah.
A reason to potentially buy loot boxes.
Yeah.
Because you could still use your money to buy the orc loot boxes that will give you good orcs. It's just they won't give you enough really good orcs where you're going to have to go work for that instead of just having them. So I don't know. I almost feel like it would have been better if they would have made the castle defense thing shorter or more reasonably challenged and not a way to try to bilk you out of money.
It's less fun when you know what they're trying to do.
Yeah, which the
orcs are like, buy a crate and attacking.
And I did. I mean, I bought crates with in-game loot, and the in-game crates were fine.
Yeah,
it's just I don't know. I paid $60 for the game. I'd like to just have a complete game.
And the most expensive version of that game was $300.
Well, yeah. What did that one come with? Like a Palantir or something?
Yeah, I think it was a statue of a dragon or something.
I'd say if you're a big fan of the first one, it's probably worth playing. If you've listened to this and you have any qualms, in February there's going to be a Steam sale where this is on sale for $20, or it's going to be Game of the Month in April of next year on the PS4, free pro thing. So good game, but with some caveats. A good game, but X, Y, and Z. Anyway, let's get on to the questions. Mail@reachside.com is the email address, and I hope you're not tired of Lord of the Rings just yet, because our first two questions have to do with Lord of the Rings.
Bad news.
Let's see here. Jay writes in and says, hey, greetings, Jeff and Amanda. I know you recently spoke on microtransactions, but how do you feel about user reviews tanking games that the reviewer clearly hasn't played yet? From everything I've read concerning Shadow of War, while the loot boxes are non-cosmetic, those who played it say it exists in the MT sweet spot. I don't know what that... microtransaction sweet spot. There is no paywall, and simply playing intelligently will get you everything that a loot box would get you. However, as of writing, the user score on Metacritic is 3.2, up from 1.8 on day one, because a group of anti-microtransaction individuals chose to tank the user reviews. Personally, the pay-to-win elements in Battlefront 2's competitive multiplayer seem like a better place to make a stand. Sorry for the long email. Had a great time playing Helldivers with you all the way back when. That's Mojo JDH. I really hope you do a Shadow of War Sunday stream one day. Thank you very much.
We did. That's where Snackbox came from.
No. That was Shadow of Mordor. This is Shadow of War. He's talking about the new one.
That's right.
So we're talking about, like, especially in Metacritic, I feel like it's
a weird question, because how do you feel about reviews when the person hasn't played it? Like, I love them.
Yeah.
Can't get enough of those reviews.
I tell you what, though, I can make a case.
Mm-hmm.
So I've talked about this. We actually had a segment that I deleted from one of our podcasts a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
But I am a firm believer that, and we talked about this last week, but I am a firm believer that gaming and the gamers in particular, that we have given up a lot of our power in this industry.
Yeah.
that we, that people talk a big game and then they buy Shadow of Mordor anyway. I mean, that people or Shadow of War anyway. They talk a big game.
I'm against microtransactions, but I'm not going to miss out on playing this game.
Yeah, they talk a big game, but they still play Modern Warfare 2. You know, one of the things specifically that is near and dear to my heart is returns. Steam does it. I think everybody should do it.
Yeah,
I think it should be legally required for me to be able to take South Park: The Fractured But Whole back to Best Buy, opened, and return it. Because guess what? If I am that dissatisfied with this game, then you haven't gotten a customer. Like, all you did was skin the sheep, right? You can shear a sheep many times, but you can only skin them once, right? Yeah. So you fuck me with Aliens, Colonial Marines, and then I'm going to look sideways at every Gearbox game that comes out from here to Kingdom Come. Whereas if you just let me take it back and return it and go, you know what? This sucks. I don't like it. I want my $60 back. Then game companies couldn't do shit like what we were talking about with the, if Call of Duty World War II, we get it, people buy it, and then day one they find out that it has that weird, imbalance of microtransaction weapons against people, then we all go back to Best Buy with our copy and say, I want my fucking $60 back. And I'm not saying forever. I'm not saying an infinite return policy. That would be ridiculous.
Yeah.
But I think that, especially because publishers are pushing digital distribution now, with that being like the easiest way to do a pre-order and get whatever the pre-order bonuses is. There's a lot of times publishers, like, and especially when you consider that retailers like GameStop a lot of times won't, like, GameStop wouldn't stock enough copies of, say, Senran Kagura Peach Beach Splash that I could just walk in and buy one without a pre-order. They would be like, go fuck yourself, right? Yeah. So in that case, if I want to play that game, I'm like being pushed towards...
That's because they don't know a good game when they see one.
Damn right. Fucking most popular game we've had in 6 months is Let's Play.
I mean, in fairness, it did have Super Soakers and girls in bikinis.
I mean, what is not to like? But I think that we have given up a lot of our power with pre-orders and letting developers ask us for money, letting them charge us for story content. I just was talking about in Shadow of War. It seems like they took 2 parts of the story and just excised them from the game, and they're going to sell them back to you for the season pass. Somebody, I think it was James Cameron, said on the last podcast when we were talking about Asura's Wrath cutting the ending off and selling you the last chapter.
Yeah.
He said that they said that originally that was going to be a second game, and then they decided just to make that in the last chapter. I hadn't played that until Grant and I played it, but if the original ending was the original ending, that's a fucking weak-ass ending to a game that's basically just a bunch of quick time events. And they're cool. You're punching holes in the earth and stuff, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, I feel like gamers have given up a lot of their power, but one of the places that they have retained power is in the ability to review bomb, and sometimes it's used well.
Sometimes it's used for good, and sometimes it's used for evil.
Sometimes it's used poorly.
Yeah.
So I think that,
that sometimes they can be used for good, and sometimes they aren't.
A lot of times, unless, a lot of it, I think, kind of talks to the way that just kind of everything works in today's day and age, right? Is that, if you're like, excuse me, EA, I think that your policies are not very good for the consumer, and that I would rather not have this technology in your game, then they're just like, oh, yeah, sure. And then, nobody's listening to you.
Cute kid, bye.
Right. But if you're just like, we're going to fucking tank your user review score on Metacritic, which always makes somebody look at it sideways if it's got an 8.7 critical score and a 1.8
is it
user
ever
score.
That drastic of a difference?
Sure. Here, let's take a look at Shadow of War right now, because even the difference between, I think that Shadow of War got, even if it's 3.2, you're talking, or 3.2, you're talking about the difference between probably something that's in the high 70s or 80s versus 30 from user reviews.
Yeah.
Let's see what we got going on here. New releases. But a lot of times I feel like that's the only way that people feel like they can make their voices heard. So yeah, Middle-earth Shadow of War currently has an 83 critic score and a 3.5 user score. Now, I've talked at length about how on Steam, people will give, because Steam only has thumbs up and thumbs down.
Yeah.
A lot of times a thing will be like overwhelmingly negative or whatever, and you look at the things and it's like it's a game that has some kind of problem that crashes on day one, and so they've just bombed it with thumbs downs. And to be honest, I mean, that does give a developer an incentive to fix a thing quickly and not like drag their feet.
Yeah.
Because if they fix it, they've got the possibility of turning of at least people who buy it after it's been fixed, giving it a thumbs up instead.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, these all seem like people that are just unhappy about loot boxes. And
I mean, if it works, it works. I don't know if they care, though. I mean, because if they're like, we got a fairly low score on Metacritic from users, but we made X amount of dollars off of people buying loot boxes, I don't know if they're going to care.
That's a good question. And that I feel like is where we're going at this point. I mean, obviously that equation works for DLC. I mean, at this point, nobody's upset about DLC. I hate to keep bringing it back to that, but DLC is fucking like most DLC should be in the game, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And some of it is good. Some of it is very good. But a lot of it should be in the game when it launches. And I don't know. I disagree. I think that once you open the door for a company to sell you a thing and then bracket a bunch of add-ons onto it, like, for example, nobody would sell you the new Taylor Swift CD and then be like, by the way, she's got 4 other tracks that are coming out in a month. Do you want to put down $4 to get this while you're checking out?
Now that you've put it out there, it's probably going to happen.
Or maybe it has happened. Who knows? I don't buy music for a while. But, if you had take anything where it's a full product. Like, nobody has a movie where there was like imagine if The Witch came out and then they were like, yeah, but we've got like an extra 20 minutes of scenes that really explain the backstory of where Black Phillip came from, and we'll sell those to you for $3 in a few months when we get them finished.
Is that what buying special edition Blu-ray is?
Sort of, but the idea of a special edition Blu-ray, I feel like, is more of like what we considered a collector's edition in the video game industry.
That's true. Yeah.
DLC to me is like, hey, have this movie, and then in a few months we'll give you the rest of it. We'll give you some that may add on, maybe it's its own thing, and maybe it's just behind the scenes featurettes. Or maybe it's like parts of the movie that you wanted to see that you didn't get to see because they were taken out so we could sell them to you separately.
Yeah.
So I have a problem with DLC, but I don't really bring it up all that much on Rage Select because I lost.
Yeah.
Like, everybody buys it. People buy DLC. I mean, even the Resident Evil 7, I just got done gushing about that Zoe and Chris stuff, and that's the 3rd DLC for Resident Evil 7 on top of Bedroom and Kitchen or whatever the other one was.
I forgot about those.
Those are pretty decent DLCs. I mean, the Bedroom one was really cool. It would have been cooler if it was in the game.
Yeah.
Like, that would have made that game a 10/10 if it was that, and then it also had all that extra stuff in it. So, I don't know. I mean, I understand where you're coming from, Mojo JDH, but on the other hand, we have given up so much of our avenues of expressing displeasure towards the game industry that, I don't know, I feel like that's what we got left.
Yeah.
I mean, what did they do in Mass Effect 3? Did some cupcakes?
Oh, no, cupcakes.
Yeah. Anywho, this next one comes in from Danny the Bespectacled Gamer, who says, hello! Danny the Bespectacled Gamer here with a question for the pod. Oh, I hate it.
What?
I hate it when people call podcasts pods.
Oh.
I think cast, it would make more sense, because it's like casting our voices out into the ether. Pod, what is that?
Like the pod people.
Like the pod people.
That's us.
So, Danny, I'm going to change
people
that.
of the pod.
But no, I listened to Pod Save America sometime, and I think I stopped because they're like, this week on the pod, we've got so-and-so on the pod to talk on the pod. I'm just like, ew.
Yeah. Can't listen.
Danny the Bespectacled Gamer here with a question for the cast. I'm sure this will be an easy one for someone in the room, but as I watched you all play Shadow of War, I had a question pop into my brain. What does the Ring of Power actually do?
What does it do?
I mean, it makes hobbits invincible and Gollum go insane, but otherwise it seems to be the power of the great and mysterious MacGuffin. But really, what does it do? Too easy. Here's part 2. You stumble upon the Rage Select Ring of Power and put it on. What would your own Ring of Power do for/to you? Thanks for all you do, and have a fantastic day. Danny,
what does your Ring of Power do /to you?
It's not suitable for anybody. I don't think.
This is not. That answer's not.
Let's just say the ring doesn't go on my finger. Ew. Ew. It's over the line, Jeff.
Yay.
Over the line.
Cock rings. That's what we're talking about.
The cock ring of power. ICO. Oh, God. Oh, put your pants back on. What does the One Ring do? Do you know?
I do not know because I've never read the books and I've only watched the movies and they didn't explain it well enough for me to remember.
Near as I can tell. So near as I can tell from what I remember, Sauron made the rings. Well, technically, I mean, I guess in this one, Celebrimbor made the rings. And each one of them was a ring of power. So there were 9 rings to the kingdom of men. I think 2 or 3 went to the elves, and then a few to the dwarves. I think the dwarves all lost theirs or melted them down, or they're under the earth or whatever.
They're like, what happened?
Yeah.
I don't know. Didn't fit.
The elves are too smart to wear the ring, so they kind of put them to one side and just say, like, there's the part in the first Lord of the Rings. You've seen Lord of the Rings movies,
yes,
right? Where Kate Blanchett talks about how if she wore the Ring of Power, how she would become like terrible. No, she's wearing the ring. I think they do. I think the elves do wear their rings, but they're like souls are so great that they can't be corrupted or whatever. But like the 9 rings are what make the kingdoms of men into ring wraiths, because the rings give them power, and then that power corrupts them, because the One Ring turns people invisible, but what it really
God, I
does.
get it. Man is awful. Jesus.
Actually, Sauron's an elf, and he's awful. So, but the One Ring controls the rest of the rings.
It didn't really take much to manipulate us to be assholes, did it?
No, not really. But yeah, I mean, it's written on the ring, Danny. You know, One Ring to rule them all, and in the darkness bind them. Like he based these rings that basically seem like, oh, this ring is cool. It gives me all this power and it makes me invincible. And it's like, great, until Sauron puts on his ring that controls all the rest of the rings, corrupts you, turns you to his side, makes you into a monster, and then you got to do whatever he says. I'm sure that somebody in the comment section is right now typing
spoiler
a sentence that begins actually in the Silmarillion, and you know what, Danny, you should go read that person's comment, because they read the Silmarillion, and if you read the Silmarillion, you should get something out of it, even if that's just to tell the rest of us who can't stand to fucking read that fucking 2,000-page horse shit. Like,
oh boy,
it wasn't supposed to be a book. It's like an index. It's like an appendix for the Lord of the Rings. It's fucking
yeah. I don't know if I could ever get into a book series that has like a companion index.
Just read The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings. They're very good books all on their own. You don't need to read the Silmarillion. Just don't do that. As for part 2, you stumble onto the Rage Select ring, put it on. What would the Ring of Power do? You put it on, and you're just like, Taco Bell.
Yeah, right.
Taco Bell. I gotta eat a Taco Bell.
Makes Taco Bell appear in front of you.
Yeah.
Now I want Taco Bell.
Oh, Taco. What's the thing right now at Taco Bell? Is it still the like the griller loaded? No,
isn't it some quesadilla thing?
Oh, it's like the nacho. It's like it is. It's some bullshit quesadilla that has like. They've gotten really lazy recently.
Yeah, they've just been like, what do we have lying around the kitchen? Put it together.
What is it? It's the crispy chicken quesadilla.
Yeah.
Oh, they put the smashed chicken chips in the quesadilla.
Oh, the naked chicken chips.
Yeah, the naked chicken chips.
Oh, I bet John would like that.
Probably. It's just chicken and
cheese
and
a tortilla.
Yep. I got one.
He's a simple man.
He likes chicken and cheese. Another Brandon writes in to say, hey, Raging Personalities. So with the new Assassin's Creed coming out soon, a lot of people are talking about it, but very little talk seems to be about the new loot system, and what little there is seems to be mostly positive. These loot systems just seem to give me a lot of tedious work of comparing my gear and then selling it. Also
is this
making
another
me
microtransactions question?
No, this is about game mechanics. Also making me feel weak when I'm still using the blue weapon from level 20 at level 30 because nothing better is dropped. It's the main reason I prefer Darksiders 1 to Darksiders 2, for example. So what game features or mechanics bother you but don't seem to bother anyone else? Another Brandon. He's what another Brandon is talking about is like the Diablo style constant loot dropping system, and then you're like, oh shit, is this dagger better than the sword that I'm using? Like, oh,
I hate that. I grow too
and
attached to the things that I carry with me for long periods of time.
now, see, another Brandon, you forgot to mention that in Darksiders 2, they had one of the greatest things of all time, and that was that they had some weapons that you could literally feed other weapons to level the weapon up to make it better. And I was just like, well, goddamn.
My sword ate another sword. Nom, 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 nom.
So the question is, what game features or mechanics bother you but don't seem to bother anyone else?
That's a good question. But I don't have anything off the top. I'm trying to think of
game features that bother you but don't bother anyone else. Boy, that is a good question, and I feel like I should have an answer for it.
That's a kind of.
I just got done bitching about DLC. Maybe can I just use that? Another Brandon.
Yeah, that's true. That is something for you.
Kill cam. I don't entirely enjoy watching. Like every time that the kill cam comes up, I just go skip. Fucking skip that shit.
Yeah.
I don't have any interest in watching somebody else kill me. Let's see. Overly long tutorials.
Yeah.
JRPGs. I'm looking over at you.
I think that does bother people, though. Like those just ridiculously.
I think that it bothers a lot of like kind of, what's the adjective to be used here?
Douchebags.
I think that it would bother the people that don't play JRPGs, but I feel like the people that do play JRPGs get mad when there isn't an overly long tutorial. That like a lot of Japanese games have mechanics that bother me. Oh, I got another one. You and I have run into this several times. Fucking visual novels need to get to the goddamn point. They're overwritten. If that was a regular novel, you would be like, whoa, just do it already.
It's not that we're like, get to the part where we do a thing or whatever, because it's a visual novel, we understand, but like it's very repetitive, where it'll be like, this girl character is going to explain herself, and then your character is literally going to have an internal monologue of the exact thing she said, and then he's going to repeat what she said in question form so that she can repeat what she says, and then some side character is going to swipe in, make a joke about the thing she said, and we haven't made any progress.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Danganronpa. Love to play Danganronpa, but I feel like a lot of Japanese games don't know about or don't like to start in media res. So like there was another game that Brian and I played called Lost Dimension. Was that the one, or was it a different one? Where it was like a bunch of psychic kids that all had different powers, and they were in this tower, and there was a kind of a rudimentary turn-based fighting system, but the thing was that you would talk to everybody after every fight, you would get to know the different characters, and you would develop relationships with them, but to move from one floor to the next floor, there would be a trial where one of the people in your group was a traitor, and then depending on how the conversations had gone, sometimes you could figure out who the traitor was, but sometimes you didn't have the votes to convict them, so like your team would vote somebody else out, and when they voted the other person out, they would get killed, and then they were out of the game. And it was randomized because it was text, not speech. So every time there were different dialogues to see what happened this time. I was like, that's great. It's just that it took like 50 minutes to get to the first trial. And I'm like, why can't you just start the game at the end of the first trial where you're watching a teammate get incinerated, right? And then your character's like, how the fuck did I even get in this mess?
Yeah.
And then you go 2 days earlier.
Record scratch. I bet you're wondering how I got into this match.
And I feel like Danganronpa, I feel like other visual novels could really work with this. But mostly with visual novels, I just have to say that, like, if there wasn't a fucking picture of a big booby anime, a bibbity boobity anime lady bending over, making goo eyes at you, would you even be willing to sit there? The only reason that you would be willing to do this is because it's a style of game that you can't get any other way, and that's the way they are all written, is they're overwritten to fuck.
Yeah.
So that gets me. Ooh, I got another one. Any game that tracks like your the things that you're doing and then tells you like whether the people on your friends list are better than you and will let you turn it off.
Does that bother you?
Holy shit, does it ever bother me?
That's so funny.
Just Cause
I didn't
3.
realize how jealous you were at how good at other games I am.
So
you.
jealous.
Just super mad jelly.
So jealous. I post about it on my secret Tumblr all the time.
It's not a secret Tumblr.
Damn it!
You literally called it Jeff's secret Tumblr.tumblr.com.
Ah, fuck. By the way, if that's a real thing, please don't harass other Jeff, because that's not actually my website. Anything come to mind for you?
No, I mean, I kind of agree with all the things you're saying, but I'm never really like, ugh, unless I am, but you know what I mean? I'm sure there's people are going to be like, duh, you fucking say this all the time. And be like, yeah.
Yeah.
That was my answer.
I mean, it's like, I'm never like, except for the times that I am.
Yeah, but that is exactly, I mean,
Yep.
Whatever.
Jimmy K413 writes in and says, "Dear Jeff and Amanda, like you, I was disappointed by the new Blade Runner movie. The first movie had something to say about existence and being. Before seeing the new movie, I sat down and watched the original with my sons. They totally got the point of the movie and argued when I asked them who was the bad guy in Blade Runner. So with great expectation, we went to go see the new Blade Runner 2049. It was a beautiful, slow, lengthy train to nowhere. It is amazing how you can have 10 times the money and a previous movie to go on and end up disappearing up your own ass and creating something horrible, i.e. the Matrix sequels and Star Wars prequels. Can you think of a time where a video game you were playing blew your mind? I mean, when you held the controller and in shock, you may have audibly said, "What the fuck?" Mine would be experiencing the twist in the original BioShock and playing Minerva's Den, the DLC for BioShock 2. Keep up the good work, and thanks for doing Rage Select between cruising around Austin in your Tesla Model SP100D on your way to your yacht on Lake Travis populated with strippers and cocaine, financed with all the Patreon fuck you money you're pulling down. Jimmy K413. Jimmy K, by the way, I would just like to briefly review your email and say it seems like you had, maybe you should have had that first paragraph and then been like, but enough about that. My question this week is, because it doesn't appear
like
that
a transition between.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate it. That I felt the same way that you did about the Blade Runner 2049. Did your sons like it though? Were they like
how old?
Oh, that's a good question.
He's like they're 6 and 5.
Can you think of a time where a video game you were playing blew your mind?
I don't know if blew my mind, but I thought like Journey and Fez were games that I felt like were real experiences when I played them.
Okay.
Where I just I wanted to continue playing them. I felt really connected to them.
Well, it's Journey. I mean, the game's just a big circle.
Yeah. I loved it. I don't know. There's like certain games that I play where I get like real quiet because I'm in it. And Journey and Fez are like the top ones that I can think of right off the top of my head. But like a shock and awe moment, like a holy shit moment in a video game. I don't know. Like, I mean, because like we're playing Evil Within 2 and playing that has its moments, but again, it's not anything. I don't know if it.
I can think of a few.
Blew my mind.
I can think of a few.
Yeah.
One of the earliest ones that I remember is there's this game. Actually, John and I played it briefly. That David Bowie was in, called Omicron: The Nomad Soul, and Omicron starts with the main character like walking up to your monitor and being like, "Hey, you playing this game? I'm gonna transfer your soul into my body. Take good care of my body. Please don't get me killed. Remember, if you die, then the game will take your soul." And I'm just like, oh, okay, all right. This is a good attempt. I mean, I'm not buying into some, what was that horrible Edward Furlong game where he plays that video game with like, there's this creepy like Gene Simmons rock and roll demon guy. Do you know what I'm talking about?
No, I don't.
Brain Scan? Brain Scan.
Yeah, that soun's right.
Do you know about Brain Scan?
No.
I wasn't exactly like, oh my God, it's like Brain Scan. But I was like, hey, that's somewhat effective. Yeah, Brain Scan
What
is
the fuck am I looking at?
It's a 90s movie with Edward Furlong where this crazy kind of like demon comes in.
Yeah.
And
okay,
he's like, I've got a video game for you to play. He's like a low rent Freddy Krueger.
Yeah,
It's got this lady in it. She totally gets like takes her boobs out. I saw it in the theater because I was a teenager when this game came out. And there's Edward Furlong looking like a weirdo. It's like the game is like makes you. It's a game about murdering people, and then it turns out, oh shit, I was actually murdering them. Like I was in a fugue state when I was playing the game.
Bum, bum, bum.
Go watch Brain Scan.
Yeah, man, I'm totally down for that.
Anyway,
Going on my movie list.
So there was that. The end of Metal Gear Solid 2 started to do some crazy stuff for me because there's a part where the game starts telling you to turn off the video game. Like there's in Metal Gear Solid 2, there's a part at the end where the guy who's the commanding officer of the character that you've been playing as is like, you need to turn off the game console right now.
Yeah.
It's bad things are happening because it's trying to get you to stop playing. Similarly, Eternal Darkness, Sanity's Requiem did that thing where you had a sanity meter, and when your sanity meter got low, like it would pull up the volume and then like turn it down.
Yeah. I remember John like brought out the game to play, and it started doing some weird shit, and I was just like, yeah, it was blowing our mind with that.
Similarly, Metal Gear 1 really did blow my mind when Psycho Mantis comes out and he's like, I'll read your mind. He's like, I see you like Castlevania games, because I don't know if you know this, but Psycho Mantis in the game will read your memory card and then comment on the games that are on your memory card. And then it was like, in order to beat him, he could read your mind. So like when you first start the fight, you had to
change it to the
put
second
the controller on the
second
second plug-in slot, and then he would say, why can't I read your mind? And it was like, and then in Metal Gear Solid 4, when the new Psycho Mantis came out, I remember you could try changing the PS3 controller setting to like the second one, and he'd be like, that won't work again. And I was just like, oh shit.
He's figured it out.
This video game knows what I'm doing.
This isn't as epic as those, but I know that you and I both had a really good reaction to Stories Untold, the first one.
Oh,
the first part
very first
where
one.
you realize, like, at first we were just like, oh, it's kind of cute, like it gives you a desk to play at, but you're playing this text-based game, and then slowly you start realizing that you're in the world that you're playing, and then, like, I think it's something like once the lights turn off and turn back on, and you can see the silhouette of a person, we're like, fuck. Yeah, that first part was like great. That was a great experience as far as video game.
For BioShock, GBK, I would say that the original twist in the original BioShock was absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
Because it really does prey on a thing where the game is telling you what to do, and you're just fucking doing it because it's a video
you
game.
didn't even question it.
And then to turn that, and then to twerk that into a a different
like you do.
thing. Yeah. Also in BioShock Infinite, at the very end, when Elizabeth takes you to Rapture from the first game, I was like, oh shit! Like that was really a good moment. I'm trying to think of some other like kind of. It's funny because like Bloodborne never really blew my. Actually, that's not true. That's not true. There is a part in Bloodborne that blew my mind because there's a. I was trying to think of if there's like a Dark Souls or Dark Souls 2 or something that happened.
Yeah.
But in Bloodborne, as you're playing through the game, the game starts to kind of transition forward more, and there's a point where the kind of Cthulhu old ones become visible in the world, and it turns out that they were like. There was one on the side of this church the entire time. And you just go, whoa, what the fuck, man? Where did that come from? I'm trying to think of, I got another one that is that anybody who's listening to this podcast who hasn't watched back, go back and watch Sarah and I play Pony Island. Pony Island was a video game about you playing a video game that had been programmed by Satan, and you were trying to get your way out of it, and like Satan kept fucking with you. So like the first thing that Satan did was make it so that all the menus fell down, and you had to like find the options menu and click things back on again.
Yeah.
But that game did two things that were so diabolical that to this day I cannot express. One was there was a thing where you had to watch this pattern. There was a demon, like a daemon, in the system that would say stuff to you, and you had to type back whatever it said to you. And so you're like, well, this is just some bullshit, right?
Yeah.
And on the third time, or the second or third time, a fake Steam chat window comes up with like Danny saying like, hey man, so you're playing Pony Island. How is that game? Is it pretty cool? And you go to
Were
type
you like
it,
fucking fan on my thing or whatever?
Well, then when I went to go click it away, it goes away, and then the little demon in the middle is like smiling at you, and he's like, were you paying attention, or were you looking at that chat box? What did I say? And it was like, oh, shit. And then I thought that we broke the game because it literally fake crashes the game. It actually, no, it doesn't. It doesn't fake crash the game.
Uh-huh.
It like locks the game up and then crashes it, and you have to like reopen it. And I couldn't figure out what the fuck was going on, because when a game switches resolutions on my capture card, it can fuck things up.
Yeah.
So I was more paranoid about that. What I didn't realize is that if you let it alone, or you boot it back up or do whatever, that it comes back. But that game was pretty cool. And actually, I hear there's another game out there on the PC that does some similar stuff, but I can't remember what it is. But anyway, that was a total mind job. I was like, good job.
Yeah.
Good job, Pony Island. But yeah, we played all the way through Pony Island. Pony Island is fucking amazing. You come with anything else?
No. Now I kind of just want to watch the you and Sarah? You and Jennifer? Who did you say? Sarah.
It's back in the old days. All right, we got one more question. That's good, because we're about 4 minutes shy of an hour, or of 2 hours. Jerry says, hey, Jerry here, question for both. And he says, Geoffrey. That's not how my name is spelled. And wonderful Amanda, have you ever been curious about your ancestry, curious enough about your ancestry to find out where and who you've come from? What were your findings? I've learned that my ancestors were either welders/farmers on the male side and housewives on the female side. P.S. Would you stab a newborn baby to cure cancer?
Yeah, all the time.
Kindness from Miami, Jerry. If it's all forms of cancer and it's like a legit thing, yeah, I'll stab one baby. But then if they're like, okay, well, I know we said one baby, but here's a second one, I'll be like, no, my soul is already damned. Oh, wait a minute, my soul is already damned. Give me the rest of the babies.
Just keep bringing this conveyor belt of babies.
You know what? I'll stab as many babies as you got back. How many babies you got in the back there?
What is that, like a fucking spare baby room back there?
Yeah. Have you ever been curious enough about your ancestry to find out about it?
I haven't, but I have had family members that have a little bit, and
Ancestry.com?
No. This was before that. I had like a cousin that was like a college student at the time, and it was like a assignment to go back into art. So like, I don't know any specifics, like like Cherokee princess or whatever, but I just know like we come from the Yaqui Indians. I got Spanish and French. So it's Native American, Spanish, and French and Mexican on my mom's side, and then it's Mexican, German, and Japanese on my dad's side.
Okay.
So I'm a mutt. I don't want to. I don't want to go like too far into it, because
you could say every swear word there is,
right?
Even the really offensive ones.
That's what I always do.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Not really. All I know about is that my on my dad's side, they were it's like what, German, Irish, British,
drunk.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, I know. Like John is something like Welsh and Czech or something, but it's real like
lots of German and British mostly for me. But I do know that in the past, when my dad's side came over to America, there were 5 brothers. They were all winemakers, and they worked and saved up and sent the first one over, who sent money back until the next one could come over, and they basically came over
they like
one
leapfrogged
at a time.
It. Yeah.
Yeah, that's all I really know. I know that one of my ancestors fought in the Civil War. I think probably for the South. I'm not entirely sure. I know that a lot of them were based in like Tennessee and stuff like that. And I remember walked home at the end of it, because that's what you did.
Yeah.
Like there wasn't a a lot of like mass transit that was like, well, come on, dude, like, you know, we'll give you a free ride. All's forgiven. It's fine.
Yeah.
You know, other than that, not really. I mean, I know about my grandparents a little bit and my parents a little bit, but I've never really been very interested in like, I guess it's kind of that I don't have like that's the family tradition. Like, you know, I'm just like, fucking whatever, man. Do what I want.
I'm trying to think. Like, I know that they thought my grandma was the Black Dahlia.
Really?
Yeah, she was the same age. So, like, this is back when, like, they did post pictures of the Black Dahlia. But
Instagram?
Yeah, straight up. Yeah, they, like, hashtagged it. And, no, but they posted them in, like, the newspapers and things like that. But a lot of newspapers didn't post the pictures, and they would just post a description of the girl. My grandma at the time was the same age, like something like 19, 20, and was and had run away from home. She'd run away from like her parents' house to like an aunt and uncle, and so they didn't know where she was. And in L.A., which was the big city, because we grew up in like an off suburb of L.A.
Okay.
Is where this happened. So they thought she just ran away, and she had dark black hair and curly hair, and she's this pretty girl that was 19, and they were just like, holy shit, we think it's her. And then they found out that it wasn't.
Seems like that could describe a lot of people.
Well, I think it was a little more specific than that, but
okay, so it wasn't just curly hair 19?
No, but it was just very like, I mean, and if you I have pictures of her, but around that age, and you can kind of get the idea of where they would have gotten that from.
Okay.
I also think that she might have been like somebody that wanted to get into Hollywood, but just never really pursued it.
Okay.
So like, you know, a young actress was found murdered, and she looked kind of like the description of my grandmother or whatever. Also, Barnes & Noble did a series of books for different towns of like the history of those towns. And the one I grew up in has actual like pictures of like my grandmother's like oldest sister and like family members and stuff, because we've been in the same town. Like, I grew up in a California bungalow, which is basically my grandmother was born in it. It was the first house built on that land. And
Damn.
It's still there. Like, yeah. Which means no heat and no air conditioning and really shitty. But yeah.
Well, speaking of no air conditioning, it is burning up in here, and that is our last question. mail@ragepsychot.com is the email address. Write in and let us know what you think, what you got. Always in the mood for more hypotheticals. You guys got some hypotheticals?
Yeah, man.
Just throw a hypothetical at me. You want to tell me a story? You tell me a story. You want to tell me about how your sons didn't like a movie, whatever. We're down for whatever. We got a whole second part. It needs things. So mail@ragepsychot.com is the email address. And with that, we will see you next time.